Yo, what's good, chum bags? So, this is a new installation of Bentley's tips. Now, it's been a while since I've made a video talking about tips and techniques, so let me give you a rundown of what I usually do. First of all, by no means do I think I know everything or act like I know everything about fishing. So these tips and these techniques aren't all the tips and techniques or best ways to fish for everybody. This is all just stuff that works for me. I'm sure there's probably other products out there that might work better for you. Different rigging, different lures, different situations. You might not agree with everything I say, and that's the cool thing about fishing is every little piece of water is different. So I'm just giving you guidelines and thoughts and things that I do that make my fishing trips more successful. As most of you guys know, I'm based in South Florida, and I, for the most part, fish freshwater, largemouth, peacock bass, and other random species that swim around here in these warm 65, 70 degree temperature waters. So today we are going to talk about worm fishing. Yes, worm fishing. This is something for me that I have just begun doing in the last year. Before the last year, I was mostly focused on peacock bass fishing. Beautiful species down here, a lot of fun, enjoy catching them, caught a lot of big ones. They're not very challenging to catch, so if you don't have much time, you want to get your line pulled, or you have some kids you want to take out fishing, it's a great species. But in the last year, I've gone back to largemouth bass fishing, just because it was more a challenge for me. It's very difficult. In the rest of the country, it's the predominant freshwater species, but down here with all the other species we have living in freshwater, the largemouth bass do not get to flourish nearly as well. So the numbers are not nearly as high in these waters, but the ones that do live and flourish are giants. Basically, with all the different cichlids between peacock bass, Mayan cichlids, Midas cichlids, tilapia, and all the other snakeheads, bowfin, all these other random fish that swim around down here. It's very hard for a largemouth bass to reproduce, spawn, lay eggs, and then have fry and be able to protect all of them. In the same way the rest of the country does. So for all those reasons together, it's more of a challenge and more fun to me. I like the playing games and trying to think like a fish and figure out where they're at. I like the slow and low, the dulls, the hours of not catching anything, and when you finally pull in that big fish, it's extremely rewarding. With that being said, the biggest bass I catch usually are caught on worms. So this video is talking about worm fishing. What techniques I use for worm fishing, what ways help me catch more fish worm fishing, and different things that I think that you guys should do if you would like to maybe try to focus on a new species like largemouth bass, or maybe you never tried this technique before. So that's basically what we're going to talk about today. I have asked you guys on Instagram and Facebook and other ways. I've just had random questions asked me about worms in the last couple months, and I took some of them and jotted them down, and I'm going to answer them. So we got, 5, 6, about 8 or 9 questions, and I'll go over them the best I can, how I can, and like I said, this is all relating to me and my techniques. It's going to be different if you're living up in Minnesota or Michigan or something like that. These techniques probably won't work for you. And if they do, they'll definitely will in the summer. Let's say this. My techniques will work for anybody, anywhere for largemouth bass, as long as the water temperature is above 60 degrees. We'll keep it like that, because the water temperature down here stays above 60 all year round. So, with that being said, let's get started. So, what are your favorite worms? My favorite worms are Zoom worms, and I'll tell you why. Zoom worms. I only fish, for the most part, 12-inch. These are the 12-inch Mag Ol Monster 12-inch. See right here. I'm probably coming backwards because I got it set up. But it's called the Mag Ol Monster 12-inch. This is June Bug Red. I like the 12-inch worm for several different reasons. One, down here in South Florida, everything is bigger. The creatures are big. Two, largemouth bass will have no problem eating anything. They'll eat anything. They'll eat shit the same size as them. I always have a saying that if largemouth bass were 100 pounds, then we would have stories every year of people getting eaten by largemouth bass, because they're aggressive. They really don't give a crap, and they will eat a worm. So for those reasons alone, I go with the 12-inch worm. I don't have to also throw in bigger baits. I can eliminate all the small fish, because I'm not going for small fish. I'm going to catch a big fish. So my favorite worm, that's it. Also, it's a thicker base. I fish worms at night a lot, so it's a better silhouette. It's just a bigger profile. The great thing also is after you catch a couple fish, the tip of your worm will get messed up. You just bite it off, and now you got an 11-inch worm. Then you got a 10-inch worm. Then you got a 9-inch worm. So they last a while. They're very sturdy. They don't really have much of a scent to them. So if you're a big believer in scent and all those different things, will definitely help you catch more fish. So get you whatever favorite scent you have, dip the tail in it or spray it or do whatever. But my favorite worm would be the Zoom 12-inch mag worm. I know Gambler Lures has a pretty good worm. That's a 13-inch. That's the same thing. I like curly tails, and then they also make I think a 15-inch or a 16-inch. That's straight tail. But like I said, whatever works for you guys might work with you. This is just what I use. But I stick to just one kind. Since it works for me constantly, I don't switch it up. So that's my favorite worm. When do I use worms? Well, that's the best thing about a worm for largemouth bass fishing. You can literally use a worm any time of day, all times of the day, whenever. I love a worm because, especially down here in South Florida, with all this sun, with the temperatures being the way they are, largemouth bass like to hide in structure or hide deep, down in the grass, way deep in the middle of the lake or the canal or whatever. So with the worm, I'm capable of getting that lure, that bait down where I think the fish are at, where a spinner bait or topwater lure or crankbait or anything won't be able to do that. I'm able to get that worm in front of that fish. And I really have the mentality that I believe that if that worm falls in front of any bass's face, they're going to eat it. Because it's the mentality that I'm going down to where they're comfortable. They're down there just relaxing, chilling. Just think about you. If you're sitting at home, on a dining room table, and then dinner comes down on the table in front of you, you're not going to think twice about it. That's normal. You're not worried about anybody seeing you. You can't be seen. You're not scared about nobody trying to bother you. There's no question. The food just got put in front of you. I'm eating that. Now imagine now you're out wandering around on the street, and all of a sudden a cheeseburger comes by on a string in front of you. You might be hungry, but you're going to be like, what the fuck? Why is this cheeseburger coming by me? You're going to look around. You're going to think about it. You might follow it for a little bit. But you know, these fish know, especially big bass. They know there's a reason why they got that big. They're smart fish. So my mentality is if I can get that worm down to where those bass are at, and I know where they're at, then So it's just a game of just casting and playing that thought process of where you think that fish is going to be, and just throw that worm and get it in there. Don't be scared about losing worms or getting hooked up on nothing. You're not, especially with these 12-inch worms and the way they're rigged. And I'll show you that. It's not going to be an issue. So I use worms anytime, all the time. If I had one largemouth bass lure that I had to use the rest of my life, it'd be a worm. It's slow fishing. It's annoying. When I first started, I didn't like it. But once I started getting results, I go with it all the time. Do colors make a difference? For me, yes and no. Usually during the day, bright days, sunny days, the water's really clear down here for the most part. I usually use like a pumpkin. This is a green pumpkin. Or I'll use a watermelon. Something in the greener colors. And then at night, or in darker water, or in cloudy days, I'll use darker worms. You know, the plums, June bugs. Just darker, because at nighttime in darker waters, the fish is looking more at the silhouette than they are the actual color. When the water's real clear, the worms and the snakes and things are going to try to blend into their environment, the vegetation. So you want it to kind of blend into whatever's around you. You know, match the hatch. For me, the colors really don't matter that much. That's one of those things where it's all for not to catch more fish, but to catch more fishermen. You understand what I'm saying? So, rigging, best way to rig. I do Texas rigging on all of it. Now, there's other ways you can rig. Like I said, I Texas rig. And this is what I do every time. 8/0. With the 12-inch worm, 8/0 hook. As you can see here, 8/0, big trocar, the only kind of hooks I mess with. The reason is if the tip on them is extremely amazing. I don't know if you can see that. It is extremely sharp. So where that hook penetrates the mouth of the fish so quickly, it'll go through it'll go through the roof of his mouth, it goes through anything. And this is another reason why I like the 12-inch worms. As you can see, when I put a 12-inch worm on, and I'll show you how I rig it. Slip that in right on the tip. So you got about that much to go through. So now the worm's sitting on that little seat. And with this big, thick 12-inch worm, I can hide that tip in there. Don't let it go through. Just put it right in the middle. And that is completely weedless. Look at that. Look. So, you can throw this through anything. If it gets hooked up, it's not because the hook is in it. It's because it's in between two rocks or in between some limbs or something. So you just kind of jig it free. And that's the rigging. With that is paired with a bullet weight. Now I got all kinds of different size bullet weights. Anywhere from a 1-ounce bullet weight to 3/8 ounce, ½ ounce, 7/16. I got all different sizes. I usually start with a lower size weight and work my way up. Now, if I'm fishing a lot of structure, a lot of vegetation, a lot of lily pads, I'm gonna use a heavy weight, a ½ ounce or up, just because I need this worm to get through that vegetation. With a light weight and this 12-inch worm, it's gonna hang up on the bush, it's gonna hang up on the lily pad, it's not gonna get through. So I'm going with a heavy 1 ounce, or I think this is 3/4 ounce, something heavy to penetrate through it. Or if I'm fishing a really deep lake, like 30, 40 feet, then I'll use something heavier. Just because I don't want to sit there for a fucking hour waiting for my worm to get down to the bottom. Now, also, you switch it up. Now, if I start throwing and casting with a 1/4 ounce and I keep on getting bites, which will happen a lot while that worm is falling, like and I never get any bites on the bottom, I'm getting it as I cast and it falls down, then now I know that the fish are in the higher water column. So that tells me that I need to bring the weight level down to let it just fall slower to get more bites. Now if all my bites are hitting on the bottom while I'm dragging that worm on the bottom, then I'll put a heavier weight on it. So those are just different things that you just gotta learn and feel and what's more comfortable for you. Obviously if you got a heavier weight, you can cast farther too. So, I mean, it all just depends on depth, presentation, and what you're trying to do with it. But it's a simple setup. The trocar hooks are good. As you can see, it's completely weedless. You're able to throw it in anything. I suggest throwing it in the deepest, darkest, craziest, gnarliest stuff, because when that worm comes out of a little hole or is stuck on a branch and then it pops out, that sparks that bite so much. With that being said, after that rigging, you better have that on a bait casting rod and reel. A heavy, medium heavy to heavy action rod and a bait casting reel. Don't go out there with spinning rod and reel worm fishing. There's no point. You need some of the backbone. You need something to set the hook. Because what's going to happen is you'll catch fish doing it with the spinning rod and reel, but when you hook up into that 7-pounder or that 9-pounder, something's going to give, brother. And it's not going to be that fish, because that fish is fighting for its life. So, now, I said something earlier about structure. Now, if and worm getting hung up. Now, if I'm fishing structure that's really, really thick, then that's when I'll switch and I'll take off the worm and I'll go with like a 5/0 hook and a creature bait. And the whole reason is just to have a smaller profile to penetrate through those pads or through whatever scenario that is. But that's further out down the road or whatever. How do you fish worms? This is very important to me, because before I ever caught a fish on a worm, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate to that. You'll probably try it, fish for 10 minutes, be like, this is stupid, this sucks. The only way you're gonna learn how to fish worms is you need to go out there with it in your mind with a game plan. Go out there and take nothing but worms. Don't bring nothing else. And don't fish nothing else until you catch something with that worm. And that's the best way I can tell you. I can't teach you how to fish a worm. You got to teach yourself. Sometimes the worm hits while it's dropping. Sometimes the worm hits while I'm just dragging it on the bottom. Sometimes it's while I'm popping it. Like I said, for the most part, it's just about getting that worm in front of that fish's face. However that fucking thing is moving, that worm is going to hit it. And try different things out. You know, it's such a beautiful thing. With worm fishing is you're able to feel the bottom of where you're fishing and learn where all structure is, what's rocks, what's tree limbs. Now let me tell you something. With something that's very hard and you won't realize, think about it, is you're going to keep on thinking you're getting hit by a fish while you're worm fishing. Because you're going to hit rocks, that weight's going to be sliding up and down the line, and it's going to be annoying. You're going to be like, am I getting bit or am I not? I'm gonna tell you how to fix that right now. Always when fishing a worm, when you cast it, keep that line open, that bail open, and let that worm get all the way down to the bottom. Just sit there and just wait for it. Once it gets down to the bottom, close the bail, and it's just simple. Keep your rod tip straight up, reel it in slack, pull up, and then wait for it to drop. Reel in the slack, pull up, wait for it to drop. Maybe drag it a little bit. You know, do whatever you do. This is slow, monotonous, same thing over and over and over again. Now, when you feel like you got a bite, that first hit, never set the hook on the first hit. For 2 reasons. One, it might not be a hit, it might be a rock or something. Once you set that hook, now that hook has gone through the worm and into that rock or into that tree, and now you lost another worm and a hook and a weight and a bunch of line. So, and if it's a fish, No bass bites a worm and then goes like that. It's not how a bass reacts to a worm. Everything else, a lot of these other lures, a bass is a straight reaction. They react, they bite it. If they can get off it, they get off. No, with a worm, they grab that thing and they just start gobbling it up. I'm talking about, you feel that first hit, you can wait 10, 15 seconds and he'll still have it in his mouth. He'll be trying to swallow it. It might be down in his stomach. So that's why I don't wait that long. But don't ever feel like you got a hit and be like, oh shit, and set the hook. No, that first hit tells you, all right, alert, that's either a fish or a rock. So now I'll wait. Because if it's a fish, you're going to get another do, and now you know, load up, set that hook. It might be 1 pound, it might be 15 pounds. Now, if you feel that what you think's a hit, and you sit there and you don't feel anything else, then you just kind of lift up a little bit, and if the tension's just tight and there's no bite or your line's not moving, then you're on a stump or a rock or something and just kind of jerk it easily and it'll come loose, because like I said, this is totally weedless. But if every time you feel a little bump like that, you set the hook, you're gonna lose a lot of lures. You're gonna be like the hell with worm fishing. And then after a while, once you get used to it, you'll know the difference between a rock, between a tree limb, a fish, what kind of fish, all that kind of stuff. So confidence is the main thing about it, man. You gotta tell yourself, get in your mind, Bentley's not making this video to sell worms, because I don't give a damn. I'm just doing this to help you guys, to get that big bass. And this is how you do it. You drag big worms on the bottom, you feel out the bottom, you feel out structure, you know where structure's at, and then you start to eliminate all the places that you don't need to cast at. 90% of the fish are in 10% of the water, especially largemouth bass. You know, they're going to be by that structure. They're going to be in that shade. So that's how you fish a worm. Don't just go out there and just blindly cast. You're just going to be bored all day. Find out every down tree, every brush pile, every dock, everything that's got shade and shadows. Pluck that apart. Now, if you're fishing at a lake or a pond that doesn't have any of that stuff and it's just grass, then cast that thing out deepest as you can in the middle and slowly drag it in. So, can you fish worms with spinner rods? No, like I said, don't fish with, I mean, you can, but don't do it. You can set yourself up for failure, man. My bait caster's got no drag on it. I set the fish on anything and I'm pulling that thing in. Largemouth bass don't play, man. And they got these giant mouths to be able to throw your hook. So you hook up to something, you need a stiff rod, you need a reel that's like a winch. It's just gonna pull that thing in. So like also I said, man, confidence is a big thing. Once you start getting confidence, once you start throwing this, you catch your 5 pound largemouth or your 8 pound largemouth, and then that's all you're gonna throw now. And let me tell you something, man. Not many people are out there throwing big worms like this. So when a big bass sees this, it's game on, man. I'm not out here trying to catch a bunch of little dinks, man. I'm out here trying to stick the big ones, the giants, that everybody else walks right past, that nobody else thinks twice about doing. I'm the only one out here in the middle of Miami throwing these big worms. Shut up. I'm making a video. Sorry. So, with that being said, be confident, go out there, do your thing, try something new, get you some worms. If you live up in the cold side of the country, late spring, all summer, early fall, do the worm thing. When the bite is real slow, when it's super hot, go out in the middle of the night, do the worm thing. Anywhere you go, heavy structure, do the worm thing. If you got a lake that you fish a lot during the day and you know where all the structure's out, come back out in the middle of the night. And when I say go fishing at night, don't go fishing right when it gets dark. No, give it 4 or 5 hours. Wait till midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. That's when the big ones are out eating. I'm telling you. especially down here in South Florida. Because all day long they got to compete with all these other creatures. At night, all them other tropical creatures go to sleep. They don't eat. Them big mamas come out. So, it's all about the confidence, man. It's all about the pursuit. It's all about the reward. It's all about challenging yourself. I know sometimes I make posts and I say things on social media that can be misconstrued or taken as hate or whatever, or talking mess. I'm just speaking my opinion, and I just sometimes question the reasons and the means and the motivations behind people. And that kind of irks me. I take fishing very seriously. It's very important to me. I think it's very important for families to go outdoors, do fishing. It's important for us to share the knowledge for the future, but we got to teach them the right thing. I don't find any use in teaching young kids how to fish with candy and toys and dolls. Like, that's not really teaching them anything. Why don't we teach them how to tie different knots? Why don't we, teach them how to maybe make their own lure or learn a new species? So those, it's irritating to watch people catch things with pool noodles and stuff like that, and that was fine. If that's one person's identity, that's fine. But as you see, it's become a trend now, and more people do it because they see the results of what happens. And it's the followers and it's the likes and it's entertaining to a lot of people, but the younger generations are picking up from that. So everybody do what you do. I appreciate everybody. I love everybody. As long as you respect me, I respect you. But let's try to reevaluate why we're doing the things we're doing and what we're doing it for, and what are the younger generation, because you guys have a platform now. However, which way you got it now. So put it to good use, and let's make the next generation a generation of better anglers that respect what they do, respect the fish, and respect our environment, because it's very important, man. So thank you guys for the follow, for the listen. I hope you learned something. If you have any other questions or comments, please post them. I'll respond back, and we'll be doing more of these Bentley's tips. And like I said, this is just what works for me. And I promise, if you try it, if you do it, it'll work for you, bro. Tight lines. See you, chum bags. Sheesh.